and welcome to the 8th Annual Eric Hilton Chair Distinguished Lecture Series. My name is Clint Rapphole, and I am now a Professor Emeritus. That's a Latin term. Some of you may want to know what emeritus means. The E means to go. Emeritus means deserves to. You put those two together, you deserve to go. So again, good morning. I would like to inform those of you who are here, there is an informal session this afternoon from 2:30 to 4. Please feel free to come in or leave early. We would enjoy having you if you get excited about what Mr. Chag has to say, and I think you will. I would also like to thank Wendy Geary and Aaron Osner for all their help and continued help to help set this program up and carry on through the day. Thank you very much for being here so bright and early and all the work that you've done. I'd like to thank Mr. Wortman also for his wonderful introduction. And thank you for assisting. And I would also, there are a couple of other introductions I'd like to make. We have two former Eric Hilton Chair Distinguished Lecturers here, Mr. Nick Massad and Ms. Dorothy Nicholson. Would you please stand and have a... We also are fortunate to have, I think, two icons in the room as it relates to club management. And that's, they get this funny look on their face, but they are. And that's Mr. Bob Southwell, former general manager of the Houston Country Club, and Mr. Red Steger, former general manager of River Oaks Country Club.
Discovered a new meaning of icon. Oh.
Mr. Southwell and Mr. Steger have had a lot to do with the development of the club management course, and quite candidly is one of the reasons that Mr. Chag is in the business today. I would be remiss if I did not introduce what I like to call Mr. Chag's better half. Mrs. Chag, would you please stand? And thank you for coming all the way from Needham, Massachusetts. Again, good morning, and thank you again for being here for our 8th Annual Eric Hilton Distinguished Chair Lecture Series. And again, my name is Clint Rapphole. I'm pleased to let you know this is my 34th year at the Conrad and Hilton College of Hotel and Restaurant Management. I'd also like to give you a brief background on our endowed chairs before I introduce our Eric Hilton Chair Distinguished Lecturer. In 1982, the college was a recipient of a $21,350,000 grant from the Hilton Foundation over a 10-year period. Many things were provided by that grant. For example, a 94,000 square foot addition, which is called the South Wing, which houses laboratories, classrooms, offices, public space, the library and archive, and of course, Alumni Hall, this very room. As important as brick and mortar are, however, it should also be noted that there were 4 endowments that provided our college in that grant. The 4 endowed chairs are as follows. Conrad and Hilton Endowed Chair held by Dr. Ron Nykiel, the Baron Hilton Endowed Chair held by Dr. John Bowen, our Dean, the Eric Hilton Endowed Chair. I am now a Professor Emeritus. I deserve to go. I was fortunate to be the first recipient of the Eric Hilton Endowed Chair. And the Don Hubbs Professorship, now held by Dr. Stowe Shoemaker. Interestingly enough, the foundation told us back when we received this grant, the first person we were to hire would be a development officer. So that position is actually endowed. And our current development officer is Mr. John Schultz. I feel privileged, honored, and I'm extremely proud to have been the first recipient of the Eric Hilton Endowed Chair. But I'd like to ask the question, what is an endowed chair and what does an endowed chair do for our college? An endowed chair assists the college in recruiting outstanding faculty to come to our college. It provides the opportunity to develop a standard of excellence that cannot be achieved only through credit hour generation and state funds. It is a way of keeping score with other hotel colleges. An endowed chair position, for your information, provides salary, provides benefits, provides travel, provides secretarial assistance, and graduate students. If managed well, the endowment continues to grow. Today, I believe a chair should be endowed at the $3 million level, although we will accept $1 or $2 million chairs. I mention all of this to make you aware of how fortunate our young college is to have 4 endowed chairs from this grant. However, it is necessary that we receive more in order to maintain our standard of excellence, to keep score, and to remind you of your responsibility and opportunity to help your alma mater become the outstanding college of hotel and restaurant management in the world, if not the universe. With that preface, please allow me to introduce our Eric Hilton Distinguished Chair Lecturer, Mr. David Chag, Chief Operating Officer and General Manager of the Country Club, the oldest country club in the United States, founded in 1882. Indeed, it's always a privilege to introduce one of your own. And the person in this instance is Mr. David Chag, a 1977 graduate of our college. David Chag was born and raised in New England, indeed the state of New Hampshire, whose state motto is live free or die, and I think sometimes he practices that. David Chag graduated in 1973 from high school with a graduation class of 25. He applied to 3 hotel and restaurant management programs, the University of New Hampshire, Denver University, and the Conrad N. Hilton School of Hotel and Restaurant Management. He matriculated at our college in 1973 and selected our college for at least 3 reasons. This was a brand new college with the Hilton name, which is a brand name everyone seems to recognize even today. 2, he told me he did want to get quite a ways from home, which may be similar to some of you. And this year was 1973. Now listen to this carefully. He was a non-resident of Texas. At that time you had to pay $40 a credit hour if you were a non-resident. A resident of the state of Texas only paid $4 a credit hour. 1 3 credit hour class, non-resident $120, 1 resident $12. It took you 1 year to become a resident of the state of Texas. What do you think Mr. Chag did? It took him 1 year to become a resident. He was a very astute young man even back then. So my initial acquaintance with Mr. Chag commenced at or around 1973, my second year at the college. It was an exciting time for the college, for the North Wing had just been completed. We moved into the North Wing in March of 1974, and subsequently I had Mr. Chag in food, beverage, and labor cost control, at that time a senior level course. Mr. Chag was always punctual, professional, an outstanding student, and most forthright. That is, he was not bashful about having a discussion in class with the professor. These are some of the many attributes he has, but what I remember most is our discussion about croissants. He worked at the Houston Country Club and informed me about how many croissants were being thrown away on a daily basis. Naturally, I was concerned about cost, waste, and poor forecasting. But he never seemed to be too concerned about this, although we had frequent discussions on same. One can see how important that was relative to the position he now has as the Chief Operating Officer, General Manager of the Country Club in Brookline, Massachusetts. David's journey in club management actually began in February of '74 when he started working as a banquet waiter at the Houston Country Club after having read an advertisement in the Daily Cougar that existed for the Houston Country Club while attending an English class. David, the students haven't changed. They do have iPods these days. Little did David know at that time that he would select club management as his profession. He cut his teeth at the Houston Country Club under the gentle leadership and mentorship of Bob Southwell, with tutoring coming from Red Steger, River Oaks Country Club, Eric Warshea, the Petroleum Club, and Joan Bracugna of the Forest Club along the way. At that time, or perhaps still today, the city of Houston and the state of Texas can be called the club capital of the world. Upon graduation in 1977, he became the clubhouse manager of the Houston Country Club until 1987, and then became the general manager of the Country Club from 1987 to the present. What is truly remarkable in his tenure in club management is having worked at only 2 clubs, 2 of the finest in the country, the Houston Country Club and the Country Club. Since Mr. Chag's arrival in '87, the Country Club, a premier setting for golf, has hosted the 1998 U.S. Open Championship, the 1995 U.S.G.A. Women's Amateur Championship, and most recently the 1999 Ryder Cup Matches. Mr. Chag has been and continues to be involved in association activities for club management and also higher education. For example, he has served as president of the New England and South Texas chapters of the Club Managers Association of America, and currently serves on the board of directors of the National Club Association. He also serves as an advisory board member of the School of Hotel Administration at Boston University and is an adjunct faculty member for club management at Boston University. He also continues to lecture in our college's club management course on an annual basis. One can see he stays involved with his profession, club management, but continues to give back to the community through higher education. So 28 years ago, 1977 in May, Mr. Chag graduated from the Conrad and Hilton College of Hotel and Restaurant Management. In the subsequent 28 years, he has created a very successful career in club management. The journey, as with all journeys, has not been without its challenges. He has handled those challenges well and has taken a prominent leadership role in the club management in the United States. His journey has been most impressive, and I am certain you will enjoy this unique story. So, please listen carefully. He's given you lots of empty space to take notes, for I believe this outstanding club manager has much to offer on his remarks and his journey to date in club management. Mr. and Mrs. Chag, thank you for being with us. And Mr. Chag, would you please welcome Mr. Chag, one of our own, very warmly.
All right, just give me a second here to get turned on. Hello, hello, testing. That's on, right? I think we're there. It is indeed a privilege and an honor to be selected as the Eric Hilton Distinguished Chair Lecturer, and it's a privilege to be here talking to all of you. It seems hard that it was 32 years ago that I was in the seats that you're in right now. And believe me, it was a much different campus at that time, and I'll probably talk a little bit about that. I roam a little bit while I talk. I like to have a little bit of fun. Jab at me if you want while I'm lecturing. That's fine. But the campus was really so different. Anybody here from New Hampshire? Oh, anybody here? Oh, yes. Where? Nashua. Nashua. Oh, well, that's one of the fastest growing cities in the country. That's fantastic. Now I feel great. Someone from New Hampshire. Good. Great. Anybody here been to New Hampshire? Oh, so we've got a few more. Fantastic. Well, I'll always come back to that since my roots are there. I grew up in a very small town, as Dr. Rappold told you, and had 25 in the graduating class. My parents went to the same school I went to in grammar school and high school. My grandmother taught, not in the same school because it was a one-room schoolhouse that she taught in, but the generations of Sawyers and Chags grew up in that small town. And it was a great opportunity for me to come to Texas and get a whole new experience. The one funny thing about this croissant story, and last night we check in here. Now, in all the years I was a student, I never stayed in the hotel. I was blessed to be in Moody Towers for a couple of years. I got a couple of stories about Moody Towers, I'll tell you, too. But I get in the room last night, and there's a basket of croissants in the room for me. And Dr. Rappold was very nice and professional of his explanation of our battle in the classroom, but it was one of those where I was so frustrated. At the end of it, he was talking about how you need to predict exactly the amount of food every day, right to the last crumb. And I looked at him and I said, no, let me give you an idea how we don't do that. We try to keep a membership happy, and we throw away a couple dozen croissants at the end of every night. And so he proceeded to make an example of me in class, and of course, out of the respect of Dr. Rappold, I didn't go much further with that. But I got back to the club, and I saw Bob Southwell, and I said, you're not going to believe what this guy at the campus is trying to tell me, that we are to predict exactly how many croissants we're going to serve, and that we should know that, and that there shouldn't be one left over at the end of the night. And I can remember Bob Southwell's reply saying, I'll tell you what, you tell that professor to come over here to the Houston Country Club. You tell him at 9 o'clock at night, you stand out there and you talk to T.L. Robinson when he can't get his one croissant he's looking for because we predicted wrong. And so we had a little fun over it, but it's funny that we still remember this through the years. In New Hampshire, is the old man on the mountain. Of course, he doesn't exist anymore, does he? His face fell off. It was being held up by wire straps. This was the symbol of the state of New Hampshire. And about 3 years ago, I think it was, the face just fell off a cliff. But the old man on the mountain's up there. Bob Southwell's the old man on the mountain to me. He's a gentleman that was my mentor through the years and really helped me remain focused. I think I got out into right field a few times, and he knew how to pull me back into the ball game. And I tried to follow his lead through the years, and I was very, very fortunate. But you people, all of you, will find someone that you work with that will be a mentor, and someone that you work with that you'll respect through the years. I'm just very fortunate to have he and Red Steger here this morning. I told him, I don't know why you're driving across town in the traffic in this city to see or listen to me. But let's start a little bit with a picture. Now, I want to start you in 1973. I think you can pick out who I am in there. I'm on the left. My brother graduated from the Air Force Academy, and you got to see this. I've got another brother who's in medical school, and the two of us decided we're going to grow our hair long. Now, this is just the end of the 60s, early 70s. I'm on the campus. I mean, life is good. We both decided, let's grow our hair as long as we can, because we're going to the Air Force Academy where everybody is prim and proper, their hair is shaved, and let's just make a statement. So we did. But I'll bet all of you would love to have the attire that I have on right there. Plaid pants, a white belt, a white tie. I mean, I look at that. I put it in the employee cafeteria of the club. I pasted that up on the employee cafeteria wall one day. Didn't tell anybody who it was. Of course, people come in there, they start talking, and all employees go. One of the employees goes in and writes underneath it, "Hey, hey, we're the monkeys." But I put it up there because I want to bring you back in time. And in 73, it was a different time around here. I'm just so surprised in so many changes on the campus. But Moody Towers, I mean, we used to spend our days on the roof of Moody Towers when it was open all the time, and had some great days up there. The only thing that existed in this area was or for associations, was the Hotel Restaurant Management Society. There was no club society or others that were active at the time. Diary. I kept a diary the whole time I was in college, or 3 years of college. And I tell kids going into college today, you've got to keep a diary. But I go back into that diary, and some of the names of the people that were the camaraderie around the hotel school and the people I got to know, and I was president of a fraternity in my junior year, and so there were a lot of good times in and around the campus. But the other night I was talking to my wife about, to Lucy, about being here and trying to relate 1973, and one of the funniest ones was a place called Cougar Corner. Nick and Dorothy, do you remember Cougar Corner? Back in the early 70s, and at that time, the football teams, the basketball teams were always in the top 10 in the country. I mean, athletics around here were very, very big. And you knew it the best because in Moody Towers, when the football guys went down to get their breakfast or their lunch, they had a different line to go through. They always got all these steaks and everything else, and you know, the rest of us just got whatever was put down there. But it was a time where they had a place called Cougar Corner where all the athletes would hang out. It was wall-to-wall carpet, floor carpet, wall carpet, ceiling carpet. It was all red carpet. 25-cent beer night on Tuesdays, and Thursday night was $2 all you could drink. And at the time, the alcohol age was 18 because they had changed it back from 21 to 18 in 1973. And then I can't recall when they ended up changing it back again. It was sometime, 74? So they ended up going back at that point. But anyway, the Houston Country Club, in my freshman year, I started working as a banquet waiter. And I stayed with them for 13 and a half years. And again, Bob Southwell took me under his wing, and he moved me around a great deal in positions and scope. And I got a great deal of education in the work environment while I went to school. I was still able to do it in 4 years, which I was fortunate. I had to go to a few summer school classes to make it. But this city, as you know, provides a great environment, whether it's hotel, restaurant, or club management, for you to get involved and be active and improve your resume by the time you graduate. Just so happens I was fortunate to be an assistant manager by the time I was a junior, and I just had no intention of leaving, so I ended up staying right there at the club for another 8 years as clubhouse manager. I was fortunate to meet Lucy, and we had 2 children just before we left Houston to go to Boston. In fact, my daughter, who was born in 1987, Lucy was pregnant when I interviewed at the country club. I got the job in March. Sarah was due in April, and I had a board meeting the 4th Tuesday in April, and Lucy agreed to be induced 3 days beforehand so that the baby was born, Sarah was born, and I made the board meeting. She's the company man, not me. She's the one that made it happen. But anyway, I was very fortunate. We moved to Boston with 2 children and ended up getting the job at the country club. If you're there this afternoon and you want to ask me a question about the interview process or something, that's another story unto itself. It was a pretty interesting one, but I was very fortunate to get the job at the country club in 1987. The country club is it's like a private resort. It is year-round, and it has 1,300 members, and it's not a club in the Northeast that really slows down at all because of weather. It's the first country club in the country. There are older clubs. The Somerset Club in Boston was formed in 1863. That's a city club. There are older golf clubs. There are older yacht clubs. It's just that the country club was the first country club, something that really formed out in the country with sporting activities, and it wasn't just a city club or something specific to yachts or athletics. The country club was also one of the first of 5 founding members for the United States Golf Association, an international association that puts on amateur and professional golf tournaments. And it's about a $12 million a year operation overall. But unlike other clubs that shut down in the winter, or maybe in Florida that slow down during the summer months, the country club stays busy throughout the year for many reasons. During the summer months, and the thing to recognize is that golf is really king at the country club. We have 27 holes. This view is coming down the 18th hole, looking up at a locker room building. There's probably 175,000 square feet of building on the club property, and many different buildings. You're looking up, the clubhouse edge is on the right, and you're looking at the locker building in front of you. But there are 27 holes of golf, 18 of the regular course, 9 as an alternate 9. How many of you play golf in here? So there are a few that play golf. Good. What we do for the championship course, when we bring in major championships, it's a combination between those 2 golf courses that comprise and make up the championship course. But the club was not founded on golf. In 1882, when the club was founded, it had horse racing. It had a horse racing track. It was made up of a few parcels of land that were farms at that time. And the 2 original sports were horse racing and skeet shooting. It wasn't until 1894 that golf came into being at the club. And about the mid-30s, horse racing stopped. Golf took over, the automobile took over, and we lost out. In fact, we kept the horse racing track on the property until 1967, only for historical purposes, and then removed it at that point. So for summertime activities, we have golf. We've also got a pool area. It's and along the pool we have tennis courts, indoor and outdoor tennis courts. This pool, does anything look a little different in that picture to you for a pool? Yep, the net. Why do you think we put a net up? You got it. Errant golf balls. That pool was located there in 1986. At that point in time, people weren't hitting the ball that far. And as technology improved both on the club and the golf ball went further. And with people that in the game of golf, if you're a high handicap, you're not really a great golfer. That means it takes more strokes for you to go around the golf course. Well, today's high handicappers have equipment in their hands that can project that ball 300 yards. And they're capable of hitting it. They can't control the direction, but they're capable of hitting it. So this little thing, we had one golf ball go into our pool area, and it hit 3 children. One golf ball, 2 in the head, 1 on the foot. Thank God none of them were hurt. But I had a board of governors that said, we're ready to split unless we do something with this liability. And so in a matter of about 4 months, we spent $1 million and put up this net. It's 2 cantilevered poles. It moves with the wind, and it's quite a unique looking structure. If we had to build it straight up, which you see at a number of golf courses where they'll have nets along the side, say if you build it straight up, you might go up 150 feet or more. This one goes up about 60 feet at its highest point. So it's cantilevered, leans over towards the pool, and at the time we haven't caught anything in it other than golf balls, which is good. The winter season, has anybody here thrown a stone? Anybody here been a curler? You haven't, huh? Oh, we have. Where'd you curl?
In Montreal.
In Montreal. Excellent. Did you just try it, or were you in a team?
No, it was like fun.
Good. Well, that's what curling's all about, is fun. It's a social sport. It started outside on the ice, and they drink a lot. Our bar sales are fantastic in the winter months. So the curlers are great, active people. We have 4 sheets of ice indoor, and it's an Olympic sport at this point. The World Curling Championships being held in Massachusetts in April this year. I'm sure that all excites you. If you get on the website, you can see the website. If any of you don't play golf and you watch golf on television, I'm sure it puts you to sleep. Nothing like curling will. Curling's one of those sports, there isn't much excitement to it unless you're really participating in it. But they have fun. We also have outdoor hockey. We have outdoor ice skating. We've got 2 skeet shooting fields, paddle courts, paddle tennis, which is a northern type sport, played outdoors, cross-country skiing, obviously. So we're as busy in the winter as we are in the summer months. It's just that type of club. Have any of you seen the movie? No one? Do you know who this individual is? Not Bobby Jones. Good guess, though. Great guess. Anybody else? Not Sam Snead. Not Ben Hogan. God, you guys are hitting it. You're dancing around it. This is going to be not Walter Hagen. You're naming all the good ones. God, you guys see, you know golf.
Nobody's going to know.
Let me tell you. This gentleman, the 2 of them. Eddie Lowry is the caddy. Francis Ouimet is the golfer. Now, I know better than to ask. You weren't around in 1980. But in 1980, in the U.S. Olympics, the U.S. hockey team beat the Russians. Now, there was a movie out recently, Miracle, I think it was called. Okay? That was big stuff. There was an amateur team, college kids coming together playing. They don't play regularly. They came together, made a team, and they beat professional hockey players from Russia. It was just unbelievable. And they made a movie of it. In 1913, Francis Ouimet, at the country club in Brookline, won the U.S. Open. The first time an American had won the U.S. Open. He was an amateur. He was 21 years old. He was a caddy. He came out of nowhere with a 12-year-old caddy next to him who skipped school every day so he could be in the tournament with him. It's one of these Cinderella stories. Disney bought the rights to it. Mark Frost is the author, and the book is called The Greatest Game Ever Played. Mark Frost is the author. Disney bought the rights to it and just produced a movie. And it's one of those Disney movies. You know, it's one of the family kid type things. They bring it together, and it's not always correct in every part of the story in there, but it's a fun little story to it. But it's very big in the world of golf. 2013 marks the 100th anniversary for it. And so this film coming out at this point is important. A lot of our time now is spent looking towards 2013 and how we'll commemorate Francis Ouimet and his win at that time. But it's a great book. It's a great read. The greatest game ever played. And even if you don't play golf, you'll enjoy the book. It's well written. Charlene, who works with me, does the PowerPoint. I don't do the PowerPoint. So she always throws in some noise or something in here. I never know what to expect next. In 1999, we hosted the Ryder Cup, which is a Professional Golfers Association event. The country club has hosted, it's the club that's hosted the most U.S.G.A. events of any club in the country, amateur and professional together. It's got a great golf course, and major tournaments today are played in many instances at private clubs. They're trending away from that more because more of the public clubs are becoming very nice facilities. But I was fortunate in 1988. I left Houston in '87 in July, and in June of '88 was the U.S. Open. And to give you an idea just the size of a major tournament, it's around 40,000 people a day for 7 days straight that come in. And it's not like the old Summit that you had, well, it's not the Summit anymore. But do you have a place for major events? The Astrodome's gone, the Summit's gone. Toyota Center, where you've got a center, it's a whole infrastructure is already set up, so 40 or 50,000 people going in there a day, it's not a problem. You've got all the bathrooms, you've got all the food facilities, you've got everything, you've got parking. Well, when you host a major event once every 10 years, 25 years, 50 years, you don't have that infrastructure, you have to build it. So I got a great deal to learn, and I did in 1988. The women's amateur in '95 was a couple thousand people a day for an amateur. It was televised. And then the Ryder Cup in 1999. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock, Bob Southwell and Joan Percunia's class I've been coming to for a couple of years, and that's all I talk about tomorrow, major tournaments. Behind the scenes, I try to give you an idea what goes on behind the scenes at major tournaments. And hopefully it's informative, and maybe other people can attend that class if they want to. I don't know. Well, I'll say yes. Come on in if you want to listen to it. And I don't charge at the door, so it's free. But that gives you a sense, a little bit of the country club. Oh, I know what I want to do. I want to go back quickly. The two people, these were all, this was the American team celebrating out on top of this porch area next to the locker room. They shouldn't have been on it. They had to climb through the window that's up there. And that's the golf pro and the golf shop manager. They were up there celebrating with them after the win. It was one of those times where everybody was just so excited. We're trying to calm people down, if anything, but I find two employees that are up there going, what are you guys doing in that picture? This picture was on the front page of the Boston Globe the next day. I'm going, how come you guys get all the recognition? Dr. Ripoll called me and said, would you please do this? Would you please speak to a class and tell them about the keys to success? And I looked at it and I still think I'm 18. And I look at it and I go, hold on a second, keys to success. I've been at 2 clubs. I've worked hard for my life. I just turned 50 this year, and I'm still crying over that. But I still think like I'm 18, and I still look at it, I'm going, hold on, keys to success. What am I going to tell you about keys to success here when I kind of think I'm still going through life? And the quote here, success is a journey and not a destination, is so true as I realize it the older I get, is that there's so much to enjoy in life while you're experiencing it rather than waiting till the end. And so I had to start and think about, well, what will I tell a class about keys to success? Most of you probably hear motivational speakers and have individuals that come in or books that you read about success or keys to success. I'm not going to go into that type of thing. I really equate it to advancement. How do you advance yourself in life in the direction that you want to go? It does take leadership. And as I thought about this class, I said, you know, it's just taking that step. It's leading. And I'm going to try to relate to you a few things today that when I talk about leadership or keys to success that I can personally relate to you. One is going to, and I'm a corny type of guy, so I use the word lead here and then put in the words with it. Okay, we'll have a little fun. Culture is one. Reinvention is the other. Coalitions and determination. As I started thinking about this, I said I really have to focus in on those functions. First, culture. It doesn't matter if you're in a hotel, a restaurant, a private club, whatever it is that you're going to find for your employment in the future and your successes, every organization or institution has a culture about it. And whether it's a hotel or restaurant, clubs are pretty particular in this regard because you've got 1,300 members, they're all there every single day or in and around your area, and you start to live and breathe that environment. And I was trying to think about what type of picture would I put up here to represent culture. And I thought, well, should I put a picture of a museum or maybe the Mona Lisa or something like that? And I said, well, I need a picture of the club, and how do I represent that as far as what the culture of the country club is? So this one I ended up taking a picture in 1982. They celebrated their 100th anniversary. And at that time, what they did was they had a number of celebrations during the year, but here they had a polo match go on the 18th fairway, bringing back horses into the environment that there were horses there all the time. And this gentleman announcing that the games are about to begin represented a little bit about the country club. But every club is different. A yacht club, a city club, country club, an athletic club, tennis club, each one has its own culture. And it's represented, made up by membership and staff and the facility itself. The membership's different. It could be an Irish Catholic membership. It could be an all-female membership. It could be a young membership versus an old membership. The one thing we have is the right to associate with whom we want in the United States, and in the private club world, that's the purpose of it, is coming together and forming groups just like you'd form groups of friendships. Include those people that you would like. But that tends to set the culture of the club. At TCC, make no mistake about it, they're Yankees. In fact, when I was here, it was during the gasoline and oil crisis of the early 70s, and there was a sticker that came out that said, "Drive 55 and freeze a Yankee," as I recall it at that point. Yankees are very frugal. They don't like to spend money. They're not showy. They don't see it. You don't see it in them. They're not going to show what wealth they have. So for us at the country club, give you kind of an example. I mean, when we get done carpet that might be in one area, like our main living room on our first floor, and we replace that carpet's still got great useful life. We take it to another room and reinstall it in another room. We like to be able to recycle product. It's not who you bring into the club and show that it's flashy. It's more, hey, we're frugal, we watch our money, and it's not about how much glitz there can be. It's a recreational club. It's not a social club. We were talking this morning at breakfast about the social nature of Houston Country Club, River Oaks, big debutante balls, big functions, big parties, who's at events. That's not like it at TCC. Totally different ball game. Getting into that club and understanding that in culture is very important. They're recreational. It was formed for recreational purposes. They're also a group of people that come together that are intellectual. They love people coming in and putting on presentations, lectures, talking to them, educating them. And that's most of our focus. It's not the Mexican fiesta party that we're going to put on or the Italian night or whatever it might be. That's not going to draw this type of membership to the club. And understanding that culture is so much a part of success. One of the things that I recall was in the interview process was trying to figure out what is that culture. And I'd recommend it to all of you as you interview and you go out to jobs, get to understand what that culture is even before you interview. And it doesn't matter what the job is, because you want to know what the employee base is like. If it's a club, what the membership's like. If it's a hotel, what are the clients like that come in and out of there? And does that really mix with what you feel as an individual you can thrive within? So to me, one of the keys to success is understanding the culture of the work environment, and even before you interview, and then making sure that you can represent that when you go to that particular establishment. Who knows who that is? You're kidding me. I gotcha. Anthrax. Or maybe is it just you can't see that up there? We were trying to represent culture, and Charlene, who again slips things in on me, she had to put this in on the presentation, but they were wearing blue jeans. We don't allow blue jeans at the country club. You can't even come onto the property wearing denim. Denim shirt, denim pants, denim overcoat, no denim. It's part of their culture. So I was trying to find this picture of someone in blue jeans that was real. I said, I'd prefer a woman over a man. And she went through the internet looking at the pictures, and so she ends up coming up with this picture, this group. She goes, oh yeah, all the kids will know who they are. This is really, I guess we're going back. There's probably an older group than what I thought. Reinvention. What I tend to find is you want to understand the culture, the business that you're in, but sometimes you begin to look like it. And you have to retain your own identity. And the way I think about it is Lucy and I were dog people. We love dogs. I hope I don't look like the Shih Tzu that we own. Can't say that too many times fast. But you do, it's funny how people talk about how a dog owner and the dog tend to look alike. So I pull this up because as I think about a key to success when you're in a job, when you're in an environment, is your ability to change. And there's a difference to that on day-to-day basis versus long-term, which I call a little bit more in the reinvention area. Every business environment changes regularly. Clubs change regularly. Clubs change by adding facilities. We added a fitness facility in the last 5 years, which we didn't have before. That was a change to the club, and we had to adapt to that because member interests were changing. Members change. The demographics change. They age. Are you bringing in younger members that you need to? Because as they age, their interests are different. And how are you adapting to that particular change? Administrations change. Interesting part about private clubs, well, let's look at it this way. If you had one class here, and you were taking it for a semester, and it was 2 times a week, and every time you came in, you had a different instructor, and a different style with that instructor, a different message coming across. It's the same subject that you're still dealing with. It gets confusing. You have to adapt to it. You got to figure out who this person is. It's like today. Who is this guy down in front of us that's speaking? It takes time to understand who the individual is, and then to be able to adapt to that. And in private clubs, administrations change, sometimes too frequently. But a president might serve 1 term, 1 year, and then you get a new president. So things like that happen, and you have to adapt to it. Staff change. The type of people you hire change. The economy changes. You tend to find that the urgent replaces the important. Your day-to-day managing those things that happen within your environment that you have to change to, you have to grow to become successful, but sometimes you lose sight with who you are. And what are you doing professionally as an individual to make sure that you're succeeding? And that starts right while you're sitting in this classroom. It's not something you wait for. It's not something that reinvention comes about in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Just because I've been in a club 20 years doesn't mean it's the first time that I have to try to look at this. We do have to step back from the minutia, from the smaller picture many times and look at that big picture. You have to forecast. You have to look at yourself. You may pull on the identity of a hotel, a restaurant, or club where you're working, but it's always good to make sure you step back and look at it and analyze yourself. I've been at the club 19 years. I'm in my 19th year at this point. And I look at it as I don't want to have this environment get stale because of me. So for me, a key to success is being able to step back as a manager of a club that really hasn't changed too much in over 125 years or 20 years, and be able to adapt to that environment. And I have to look at it from a big picture. Coalitions. Now everybody must have seen this. I won't ask who has not seen this movie. But building coalitions, private clubs and club governance and club structure with members and staff is an important part of the management of it. I was asked by the United States Golf Association last year to speak to a group of ground superintendents. These are professionals that manage Mother Nature. In my environment, there are 235 acres. There's one ground superintendent, has a staff of about 26 people, manages about $1.5 million worth of equipment, or up to closer to $2 million worth of equipment, mowing lawns, but preserving the environment. It's a very important job. The United States Golf Association at the New England Turfgrass Conference puts on one day of education each year. They asked me to come speak to the ground superintendents about the general manager concept. So I said, okay, the general manager concept is one where the general manager, all staff report to that one individual. Sometimes in private clubs, it's separated. An individual like a golf pro will report to the board, a ground superintendent will report directly to the board, and a club manager, someone just seeing the restaurants and food and beverage, report directly to the board. But in a general manager concept, they all report up through one individual. Now that doesn't make individuals who want a little autonomy, who are professional, very happy sometimes. They like to be able to push their space and get what they want. And sometimes they have to deal politically with just one individual. And that relationship is one that can be a struggle, particularly in the private club field. And so it's a constant subject that's brought up among professionals in the industry. Golf professionals, ground superintendents, and managers. And I've spoken to this group before, smaller group, about this, where the golf pro and ground superintendent and I came together and said, how do we work together underneath this one concept, general manager? Well, we ended up at this one, I said, well, I don't want to give the same type of lecture. I said, what can I do differently to relate to them? So I went home to my little lazy boy and sat down one night and started thinking about him. For whatever reason, Shrek came to mind, because I love the movie anyway. But it came to mind, and I said, you know, what about the characters in there? How could I compare them? So I ended up saying, what I'll do is I'll talk to, and there were 500 or more ground superintendents in this audience. And I said, I'll talk to them about the relationship, but I love a sense of humor. To me, if you don't have a sense of humor, you could be the best employee, the hardest worker. I'd rather find someone else that has a sense of humor. We work in a hard industry. I like to laugh. We cry a lot too, because there's a lot that goes on that we didn't predict or didn't want to happen that way, but I want to make sure we make it fun all the way through it. So I like a sense of humor. So I'm sitting there, I'm looking at this, I say, now I need to relate that to some ground superintendents. So I said, I'm going to take the characters and I'm going to draw a parallel between each of the characters and the professional. So I looked at it, I said, well, the first one that came to mind is the princess. That's the golf professional. Everybody loves the golf professional. Now, I'm speaking to a group of ground superintendents, I could say this. And the princess is someone, everybody looks to a golf professional because as an instructor, that person's telling that individual how they can become a better golfer. And so they just love that individual because they have something that they need and want. And they treat them like a princess. They treat them like royalty. So I went into a long spiel about how I paralleled the golf professional and the princess. And then I went into I had to select between the other two. I looked at it, and first my ego jumped up there, and I said, well, as a manager, I want to be the star of the program, so that's the ogre. And then I sat back and I said, but hold on a second. The ogre lives behind the scene. The ground superintendent lives behind the scene. You don't see the ground superintendent every day. You might not ever see him. The ogre's big and powerful and can influence things, and does throughout that movie. Well, ground superintendents are quite influential in what goes on with a large property and how it's managed. And I said, you know, Shag, yeah, back up. You're going to have to play the donkey because the ogre will have to be the ground superintendent. So then I drew parallels between the manager and the donkey that was on there. And the reason behind, if you know the movie, and there are relationships in our field where the golf professional and the ground superintendent have to work very closely. It's sort of like the kitchen and the wait staff. It's front of the house, back of the house. You have to work very closely together. And so you have a situation here with the ground superintendent and golf professional, and who brings those two together but the donkey? In the movie, it's the donkey that gets them to get married and get together and live a long life and be happy. So to me, I said, hey, I'll play the donkey on this. And I went through this whole spiel about general manager concept and building relationships and working together because it's an important message. That's more team building. I was fortunate with the ground superintendents. They bought into the story. They could have gone the other way and been throwing eggs at me or something. It worked in the way I was trying to tell them. I backed out. I said, keep a sense of humor. We all work hard. We need to work hard together. Get the egos aside and make sure we're productive in the bigger picture. That, you could say, rather than coalitions, is team building. But let me talk to you a little bit about a recent example of coalition building that I see is political in nature, and you have politics in every work environment. For the first time in my career, I had to hire an executive chef this spring. Fortunate, while I was at Houston Country Club, I was a clubhouse manager. Bob Southwell had hired a guy by the name of Bob Jones who was just a first-rate chef. Never had any problems. I go to the country club in Brookline. A guy that's a few years younger than I am is the chef there. Well-skilled, great. Well, he just gives me notice in January he's going to open his own restaurant. He's been wanting to do this all his life. He's going to go do it. So, okay, I need to hire a chef. Now, this is a nationwide search that I'll have to go through, and I'm looking at him saying, now, how do I want to structure this? But in a political environment, what I did is, and again, if you're in these club management classes, you tend to learn that there are committees in clubs. That's members coming together that influence policy for you. Should not be involved with operations, but influence policy. We have about 20 committees at the country club: curling, golf, tennis. We have a buttons and bows committee that just deals with the type of jacket that the member can wear and the bow ties that we order and things. Oh, it's really out there. There's another culture. That's what I should have used as a culture example. But anyway, I formed a committee. I was wise as a manager. I knew who I wanted to get on that committee. And I got somebody who owns 3 restaurants who's a member. I got somebody who is a professional recruiter. I got someone who doesn't use the club facility, food and beverage, as much. And what was then a person from the board, a house committee chair. Pulled them together. I did the search, had them involved with the interviews, got them involved so they bought into the process. And then afterwards, we came to a conclusion. We worked as a team together, but I really had to build a coalition of strength among the human resources that were available to me through the membership for me to politically make sure that in the end, everybody felt like not only this was a great candidate, but the overall process felt a sense of inclusion in it. They bought into it. And to me, private clubs, coalition building among members, among staff, not just team building, but pulling together the right resources and strengths of individuals to be successful is important. I'll touch on determination as the last one. Work ethic, working hard. I hire people out of hotel schools all the time. And it's a very competitive environment out there. And we like to see a resume. We want to be able to see that you worked while you studied. For somebody that just went to school for 4 years, that's great. I hope you continue with some other degree and continue on. But if you haven't worked and haven't shown interest in there, that's going to be very difficult for you to compete in today's environment. So a strong work ethic is so important to me. And when I'm hiring, I like to be able to see that, and particularly in the club industry, if you're interested in clubs, you can't work in hotels for 4 years, then come in and say, gee, I've always wanted to be in a private club. And vice versa. You can't work in private clubs and go in and say, I always wanted to be in a restaurant or a hotel. you don't have the experience for it. It's really becoming more and more specialized. That doesn't mean that you can't try different things, and should, in working in different arenas. But you have to show interest at different levels. And I like to be able to look at that type of resume. This is again, state of New Hampshire. That's Tuckerman's Ravine. You ever hike that? No. White Mountains. State of New Hampshire. It touches Canada. It touches the Atlantic Ocean. It's got a beautiful mountain range in the center called the White Mountains. It's the highest peak east of the Mississippi. It has the coldest recorded temperature in North America. That's Mount Washington. And so each year, when I hire the students that come in and work with us, I take them on a hike. I'm getting older, and I don't know if I'm going to make it every year now, but we're still hiking this mountain. And if all the conditions are right, and they were perfect this day, and anyway, the first one is Drew Ford, a clubhouse manager that works for me, married, 2 children. He's got, he lives on the property. The next one's Summer Pettis. She's one of our interns from Cal Poly, then yours truly. The next one, Andrew, is from Cal Poly, just graduated and is here as an assistant with us. The next one's from Crystal Accountants, an assistant. She is from Johnson & Wales. And the last one's Scott Ninemeyer, whose dad is a professor, was a professor at Michigan State. Still does teach, I think, a little bit there, Carl. And his son, Jack, came to work for us. And so we get him up there. But Scott on the right is somebody that I look at and I say, gee, I would probably hire him in a nanosecond. He's a guy that we put in as an intern for the summer. 2 years in a row. The first year we worked him day and night, but he is somebody, he's athletic. In the morning he'd go out, he's on the crew team at Michigan State. He found a place on the Charles River to be able to row with another group. He'd get up at 5 in the morning, go row, come in, do his shift, work in the afternoon. If he didn't have an assignment in the afternoon or in the evening, he would volunteer his services, go work within a department. And I'm sure many of you do that, if not all of you, but it's the type of thing that I look for when it comes to success, is determination. It's something that I had to do. It was funny. There was an assistant manager at Houston Country Club by the name of David Jackson. And he'd call me up. I'd be in Moody Towers, probably asleep at 10 o'clock in the morning, skipped a class or something. And he'd call me up. He'd say, Chag. He couldn't pronounce my name. It's C-H-A-G. It's pronounced like S-H-A-G. But he'd say, Chag, I got an M.I. for you. And an M.I. represented Mission Impossible. That meant he was about to give me an assignment that no one else would take. And so I'd say, okay, I need the hours. I got to pay for that $4 a credit hour, you know. It takes some money. And so I would go in and do whatever he wanted me to do. I would shovel. The one project was shoveling pipes that had burst along the outside of the pool. And so we had to break the concrete up with the maintenance crew. We needed hands. And so I went in and said, sure, I'll do that. Bless you. So it was one of those that I got involved with and helped. But I was willing to do anything. And I think that's an important part of the work determination. Working hard, getting an environment, being flexible, being willing to do whatever it takes to succeed. The future in private clubs. Quickly, there are 3 things that I see for the future with private clubs. Club governance, that is changing. Private clubs from years before were very small political havens and were not run professionally or like a business. People are too specialized today. Ground superintendents command top dollars in salaries in this country. They are highly trained professionals, as are the golf pros and the general managers coming out, as are the executive chefs, as are the project managers, the maintenance people that oversee facilities. And the governance of those clubs need to change. Board turnover needs to be reduced. You don't need to have a new president every year. And a lot of this is being forced not only through the economies of running a club like a business, but it's also from something many of you may be familiar with as Enron and the problems it created, and an act called Sarbanes-Oxley, which then followed up with corporate responsibility in public corporations, but it's also impacting private corporations. It's also impacting charities. And there are new laws coming up in that regard. Things are forcing private clubs to change, to operate more as a business, and it parallels a great deal of the public arena. And the management area changes, as we talked about this general manager, chief operating officer concept of overseeing more of what goes on within the operation because you have more specialized individuals behind you. And it's interesting to see that in the Professional Golfers Association as well as the Ground Superintendents Association, these professionals all want the same job that all of us are seeking to get. They're coming at it in a different way. But they seek that same title. They seek the same responsibility. And the whole job arena has changed for more respect, higher compensation, better quality of life. It's interesting to watch today, and then maybe it might be me getting older and looking back saying, I can remember working 7 days a week and that sort of thing, and walking in the snow and blah, 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 blah. But you do look at it today, and so many people are interested in time off. They want to balance their life. And so young people coming up into the workforce are changing the way clubs operate as well. It's not also coming from outside influences. Women and minorities. Doug Howe of the Club Corporation of America. He may come down here and speak to you. Club Corporation America, a big company, operates many facilities around the world that are clubs. He's done some wonderful research on the marketplace and how it's impacting private clubs. And the two biggest contributing factors, women and minorities, are really impacting private clubs because of buying power, being in the workforce, senior positions, different interests. And we have to respond to that. It changes what and who we are. And last is competition. You know, you'd think that a private club with a name like the Country Club, with a golf course like it is, gee, it's the only place to be when you want to play golf, but that's not the case. We have many public golf courses opening in the state of Massachusetts, which are top-end, high-end golf courses and facilities, and they're public. So you don't have to pay $50,000 to become a member and $10,000 a year in dues to use the facility. You can pay as you go. Go to a public facility. You don't have to wait to be admitted. If you pull out your wallet and you got the money, you play. And some of these facilities are just incredible. Beth Page in New York hosted the U.S. Open in the last couple of years. Torrey Pines in San Diego also hosted great facilities, public. People pay and go to those rather than paying to get into a club. That's a dynamic that we have to pay attention to. Websites, I left those there with you. They're interesting. Hopefully you all visit those. Just look at them. It's an education unto itself. It opens your eyes to what there is out there. It may be that you never care about swinging a golf club or playing the game. But it's very interesting to go to that PGA site and see what fields and opportunities there are just within that one profession. The National Club Association that's on the top there, it's a group that oversees the legal and legislative issues for private clubs. I happen to be on the board for that. And our focus are on things that are rather current events. One of them being here in Texas, you just voted down something on gay marriage, I think it was, recently. You think I come from, they did. Think I come from a liberal state? Massachusetts, Kennedy, my God, you're not going to get any more liberal than that. We've got, we recognize gay marriage. So here is two different states, and that type of significant other policy, and it's not just in the gay arena, it's in the old arena. People are living together and not getting married, only for financial purposes and other reasons. That significant other issue is an issue that's hot in this economy and in this environment. Association health plans, health insurance, very expensive in this country. We're trying to influence health plans that can go through associations that can help keep that cost down for employers. And of course, you brought up the net at the pool as errant golf balls. All right, I'm down to the last. I'll call it quits here in a second. I'll make this quick. You're not going to find out what the secret of life is today. I'm not going to tell you. You probably already know it, but since I'm 50 and I feel like being corny, I'm going to say it anyway. Movie, City Slickers. I always go back to movies. You ever see City Slickers? Billy Crystal, isn't that a funny movie? Do you remember the scene with Jack Palance and Billy Crystal riding out in the prairie? You know, that one thing. That's right. It's that one thing. They're riding along, and here's Billy Crystal, just a wise mouth from New York coming in there. And I'm not saying that against New York. He's from New York. That's what he was. But he gets in, he's on the thing, and it's this relationship, the dynamics that's going on between them. And this cowboy's talking to him about the secret to, about life in general. Love, work, making decisions, and you know, he says, you know, you city slickers come out here every year, you spend 50 weeks getting all tied up in knots, and then you come out here in 2 weeks and think you're going to be able to get rid of all those knots. And he says, he looks at him, he goes, there's only one thing that matters in life. Billy Crystal looks at him and says, what's that? He says, that's for you to figure out. And I say it today to you because I look at it and say there are keys to success. I've related some things to you today that I think of when I look back in time, and hopefully I've got longer to live. Hopefully I find some destination point on this, and maybe I'll be successful one day. I look at it and say, there's one thing that matters. Don't lose sight of that. In all that you do as students, you got a number of classes, you're trying to work, you're juggling a number of balls at this point in life, and it will continue like that when you get out in your professional life. But I look at it and say, you know, sometimes you have to back up and say, what is it that really matters? What is it that really counts? I relate to you, family is going to be one of the most important things in your life, if not the most important. Fortunate, even though my wife's here, to have a wife. We just celebrated 25 years, and she wasn't going to be here today, by the way, so this wasn't made with her in mind, believe me. She'll be picking on me as soon as I get out of here. My son and my daughter, Greg and Sarah, and I look at it and I say, there's something I always coach young people coming out of college when they're looking to me and they're talking about a job and what they want to do. 2 times that I bring it up with them. First time is during the interview process. I really want to know what your interests are. I don't know how many times young people have explained to me that they have a significant other that's going to be going here or there, and they're not certain which job they want to take, etc. I take that resume, it goes right out the door. I'm not interested in you from that point forward. I want you to be interested in you and what you want to do. Don't tell me about someone else in your life. I want to know about you're the most important thing in your life. And the other time is once I hire them and I know I'm going to abuse them, because I'm going to work you and I'm not going to pay you. That's what Bob Southwell taught me. Don't pay you and make sure you work them hard. In fact, I think you still owe me some back wages from back then. I'm not certain. But the reality is that I look at it and I say that when you get into a profession, there are many times that many of you, I assume, are single. And when you're working and you're making decisions on your work environment, the thing I tell you is family and work are very close at that point. When you get married and have children, family you really have to pay attention to. Or your brothers and sisters, your mother and father. Don't ever lose sight of it. Doesn't matter what you do in life because times change. Who do you go back to? You go back to family. But when you're a young professional and you're aspiring, you want to succeed. I relate this to young people all the time. As I look at them, I say, now listen, I always tell you family's first. And it should be right there in every decision you make. Sometimes, as a professional, you're going to have to err on the side of your professional growth, and family takes a little bit of a back seat for you to succeed and get ahead. But I say that to them in all earnest. I also relay that it's so important to keep family in focus. Don't ever want to lose that. Mother, father, sister, brother, family that you have. As young people, keep that with you. You're going to make decisions that are going to be towards professional growth. That's great. But always make sure that's pretty close. I've been very fortunate to be here today. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I know many of you probably have classes to go to. A couple of things. Do we have time for one question? Or I'd like
Zap me. Someone's got to have a question. Come on. One question. Yes, thank you.
If there was one book I was to read this year that would help in my professional growth, what should that be?
One book that you should read this year for professional growth. You know what I'd say? First, my mind immediately goes towards private clubs and the environment in which we thrive. I would recommend 2 to get you involved. One would be the greatest game. The other one would be the Grand Slam. Because I think first I want you excited about the environment.
I'd like to close this at this time, if I may. We have something we'd like to share with you, Mr. Chag. You noticed I pronounced that properly.
Oh, thank you.
We traditionally give a plaque, and I would like to read this to you, if I may. The Conrad and Hilton College, University of Houston, David B. Chag, CCM, Eric Hilton Chair, Distinguished Lecture Series, November 10th, 2005, signed by the Dean and myself. And we would like to thank you very much for... You're going to have to stand to receive a seat. Yes. So, if you'd come over here, please. We'd like to have you stand to receive a seat. If you will, this is the Eric Hilton Distinguished Chair Lecture. This is for you. Please have a seat. And enjoy.
There goes my ego.
Thank you all for being here, and thanks for staying with us. And for those of you who can make it this afternoon, feel free to come in late and leave early. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.